I would also just like to thank the town board for approving and allowing this main meeting room to be what it is you see today. There still is some things that do need to be done, but I think it looks great. And I want to thank Tim Masters for his help in doing the things that I don't know anything about. And building.
It definitely looks bigger. It
Yes,
doesn't
it does.
appear to be bigger, but it looks bigger.
Color.
Thank you. Okay, audit payment, Councilman Bax.
Make a motion to approve the regular abstract of claims number 2,932 to 3,083 and recommend the payment in the amount of $186,873.57 plus a post audit of $8,061.34.
Second.
Motion and a second, any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Under old business, the dog shelter.
Okay, well, not great news on the dog shelter. I had put together a bid package and contacted 5 different prospective contractors who seemed interested. I sent the package to them, followed up with them. They assured me they would bid. As time moved on, one backed out, and of the other 4, we received none by the time the bids were supposed to close, which the bid period is from September 25th through October 4th. We received 1 bid, maybe 3 or 4 days after the closing of the bidding. So at this point, I have nothing to recommend for award. It's disappointing, but we gave it a shot. I followed up with some of the contractors, and they said they were too busy at this time, and otherwise they were not interested again. So I'm suggesting that we reconsider this and maybe take another swing, maybe late winter to get it out for maybe spring construction.
What about a pre-existing structure like you see in the sheds or stuff? I mean, does anything like that, Donna? Does anything like that, like a pre-existing structure fit the bill that you bring in and it's already built that?
Yeah, as long as it's gonna hold dogs and nobody's gonna be able to get at them. Now, Bernie, I've been notified by the Ag and Markets that the grant period has opened with them. So if the town board would like to, we'll just move forward with a grant through them. If it's not gonna take any, we're not gonna get it any sooner by doing it this way, obviously, because we already tried it and it's not gonna work. But the grant period has opened, which it wasn't open, and it's open, and they're ready to start, letting us fulfill the applications.
Okay. Ryan, in a situation like that, where you only get 1 bidder, and if we try again and you still get just 1 bidder, what's the opinion of the, as far as, I mean, is that gonna have to be good enough?
a lot of it depends on the exact circumstances of the situation. 1 bid can be enough if you show that no one else, you can't get anybody else to bid.
We need to document.
Exactly, it's laying that paper trail to show all the attempts you've made to fulfill the procurement requirements.
We have a policy in place right now that's being used with Wilson, correct?
Yes.
I suggest we continue that, fill out the application for the grant, and then when we rebid it, give whoever gets the bid the opportunity to have a longer period of time so they can do the concrete work when that works, and then do the other building later on, and hopefully we get some contractors who are willing to get involved.
That's fine.
But
We did solicit.
Right. Oh, no, I know you did. That's what I mean. It's frustrating. I know it's frustrating for Donna.
I think it's your, Bob, is your concern the fact that we have the paperwork to document that we've gone to the requisite number of people, and that we're not gonna get any better or different response when we do it in the spring?
we got the grant to go after first, so we have a reason to delay it. Go after the grant, and then as soon as it's hopefully we get the grant, then go after the construction again. But maybe try to elongate that building's process so that they put the concrete down when they can, finish the building. Because we always want the job done right away, which is usually best for us. But if we're not getting contractors to bid, it may be that they just need to be able to squeeze this in sometime.
What does something like this cost, roughly?
Bob's got to be careful because
You're not at liberty to say.
you can't.
Well, I have the bid, but if we're gonna rebid or consider,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'd rather just hold, in fairness to the bidder who
Mhm.
did submit.
Okay.
Have you reached out to that bidder to find out whether he would hold his price until the spring, when the grant possibly would be in?
I have not, I certainly could, but that's quite a while. They'd have to hold it for like 45 days. That's a little bit longer than that, but it doesn't hurt to ask.
I would, wait, try to apply for the grant, and then rebid it, and then go from there. And hopefully we get a couple, but if not, we now document it twice and go after the construction.
I guess the big fear is you get the grant and you still can't find
Mhm.
anybody to build it. Bill?
Exactly.
Is there a chance maybe they could be opened up to BOCES or someone?
That's a
I
great
don't
idea.
know. Something we can look into, but.
It's a great idea.
Yeah, so, we're gonna take no action tonight on it, one way or the other, so. Okay, thank you. Now, in regards to the Upper Mountain Road PUD concept plan, I know Councilman Bax.
First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for coming out tonight to speak. There were some comments made about, that again, in the spirit of all fairness, I'm not sure were completely accurate. I know the supervisor had made some comments about, I think the comment was that whether it was a done deal or not. I'm not sure that that should characterize this board's attitude toward the project. I think with the delays that we've taken and the amount of consideration going out to the homeowners, walking the site and discussing everyone's concerns, I'd like to say that we're taking this very seriously. The town residents have voted us here to make decisions, and we're here to make difficult ones, and oftentimes.
Hold on a second, could you turn the flash off on that? You can record with the flash. Can you turn that off? I'll give you a second to try and do that.
I just need to collect my thoughts now.
Yeah, I apologize, but it was.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember where I was, I'm serious.
It's okay.
It was in the spotlight.
You got elected to make difficult decisions.
Yes, thank you, thank you. And oftentimes, we're here making 5-0 decisions. It's not always that we have the luxury of doing that. Last board meeting, there was a little bit of discussion about how there were some additional assurances that the developer could provide us. We had asked for some financial assurances from their bank. My understanding is that those have come in, and we're in the process of reviewing those. Also, there was some discussion of a traffic study that has also come in. The quality and the nature of that traffic study, I think this town board is still wrestling with as to whether it meets the requirements or not. And even as late as 3 o'clock this afternoon, we were talking about the seeker requirements and whether they had been met by the developer. I restate my thanks to the developer for, at every request, being willing to come to the table and discuss these very difficult issues, which in my experience on the town board is not always the case. I completely appreciate and also thank the residents for coming out here and week after week restating their concerns and their genuine fear that the quality of life that they've enjoyed for so long could be threatened. So we acknowledge that, and again, I don't want to speak for the supervisor, but I just don't think you could boil this process down to 2 words, those being that it's a done deal.
And I want to address that because what I told Mr. Domino directly was, I believe my words were, you guys are up against it. I never said it was a done deal. I did research on it. I talked to our building inspector. This is an existing PUD. The exact words I used were, you guys are up against it, I believe. I never said this was a done deal. So, and it was at his house in the yard. So,
and my hope is that through this process, which again, I think having those students here today was a great thing. I think this is one of the best meetings we've had. We've had conversation, and it's been on both sides. But I think through the process, we've made the project better, whether it gets ultimately approved and built or not. I think we've made this project better, and it's been through the efforts of everyone. Again, I think we've got the traffic study in, we've got the financial assurances back. I know we're talking about the seeker issue still, and as to whether that's been complied with.
It has been.
Okay, so that's been done. But what's most beneficial to the town board, now that those additional items have been submitted, my reading of the town code is that we can take additional time to continue these discussions. My biggest concern, again, with the park issue is that we have a park, we have a back door to it. The fact that a park may be there, I don't think that the town board, and I think Mr. Dashino will agree, should take on any additional responsibility for green space. Thankfully, the church is willing to do that. I think if there's going to be a deal for the park, that property should go directly from whatever developer it is to the church. But that we have a plan that in conjunction with that, the town is going to take responsibility and put something that is worth coming to on that property. I'd like to see, maybe reach out to Greenway, maybe put in a proposal for an actual sidewalk down Bronson Drive to protect the residents who will naturally be drawn to that park from both sides of Bronson Drive in the circle. But that's my own opinion, and again, does not reflect the rest of the board. So there is, in my mind, additional work to be done here. And again, according to our law, once an additional item is submitted, and I'm referring to council on this, that gives us, by my reading, an additional 30 days or 31 days to respond and incorporate those changes into our final conceptual plan. And just asking whether that's
That is correct. However, we received those items, I believe, on the 9th of October.
Okay.
That would put us 2 days short. It would not give us an extension of what we already have with our 61 days.
Okay.
So what has occurred is our 61 days are up on the 12th of November. I've spoken with the Ravino brothers, and they've been gracious enough to consent to a 3-day extension of that time. That way we don't have to call a special board meeting between now and
November 13th.
Or November 13th date. So we can do it on a regular board date. At which time we will call a public hearing with regard to a local law which will be put together for the modification of the concept plan, which is now approved.
And again, I don't want to speak. Mr. Morial has been side by side with me and doing a lot of work, you know, in putting the feelers out there and collecting some feedback to either make the project better or to determine whether it's something that the town actually wants to move forward with. And it's been a very difficult thing, but I'll let Mr. Morial speak for himself.
Well, like I said, Al and myself, we've been talking together on everything that's taken place, including the traffic study. And I would like some guarantees on a project, and I don't know if that's feasible, but there's a couple things that road going out the Upper Mountain Road definitely gets put in. I don't want the first phase, and then it just drops right there. And also, well, like we said, the sidewalks, if that could even be possible. But there was something else we were talking about today. And the traffic study, was that an actual study? That study only works if that Upper Mountain Road exit gets put in. Otherwise, then that's not a true study on if that's going to be okay for Bronson Drive. So that's where we'll leave it at right now.
So what we,
Well, just so you know, Mr. Morial, at the next stage during the detailed plan, it is in the code, town code, that a complete detailed traffic study must be completed. That's in the town code. So during the detailed, when they put together the detailed plan, that has to be done and put together, which is approved by the town engineer.
But as me and you talked, the PUD, the planning board recommends approval with the traffic study before it gets voted.
For the concept.
Before the
Concept and
concept.
the detailed are two different things now.
Right.
All right, I'm usually right on.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, two entirely different things.
Okay.
I mean, I think we're taking the appropriate time, and again, I've never been one to raise objections just for the sake of objections, and again, I've listened very closely to everybody who's come to the town board, and, you know, I think my major concern is the safety of the residents going up and down that street. I think speed is an issue, and I'm not sure whether we can address that through our town police department. I mean, I think, you know, as long as there's a cop car there, nobody's gonna speed, nobody's gonna blow a stop sign, but how often can we park a car and put a man there? I think that's just impractical. I think it works when they're there, but I think a sidewalk would certainly address the whole neighborhood. I mean, Elliott, James, the Circle, everybody would be able to have access to that park without as much of a fear of them walking on, you know, a 6-inch
Well,
sidewalk.
Mrs. Wilson, you live on the east or west side of Brownson? The east side. So any type of sidewalk will go through your front yard. What do you think, because this is something we discussed, what kind of objection will we get, do you think, from the homeowners on Brownson Drive of a sidewalk? Because it'll go right through your yard.
I certainly can't speak for my neighbors. I can speak for myself. We're thinking about moving out of the state anyway.
Well, if you were staying. Okay. Thanks for your non-committal. We're trying, honestly, I'm so sorry. We're trying to get a feel for what people would be for or against.
As a co-owner of that house,
You know?
I personally wouldn't have a problem with something.
Okay. And Mrs. Domino?
I wouldn't have a problem with it either.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Supervisor, if I may?
Go ahead. Yeah.
My brother Joe had to leave the meeting. I'm John Rubino. I just wanted to follow up on just a couple real important points that I think weren't brought up this evening. There is, right now, the current satellite development has one way in and one way out of the whole entire subdivision. And we've been told by the building inspector, the fire chief, that this is a real big concern right now for the town. Our first phase would basically put a secondary access onto Bronson Road to basically help or satisfy the egress issue that's going on right now. So, you know, the first phase is very important. It gets that road up to the northern end of Bronson Road. It's always been on everybody's surveys and from the past development. It's all documented. And I think that's a very important part of this development, is that first phase, bringing that road out there for fire safety. So emergency vehicles have another option in and out of the existing subdivision that's there right now. My brother Joe touched on a few things that I thought were very important. The land is zoned PUD, Planned Unit Development. That's basically a multi-family zoning. We're proposing detached patio homes. They're different from attached units. It's a different market totally. There's a demand for it. I've done research. I've been in real estate 38 years. I've spoken to local realtors here, and they tell me there is nothing on the market right now. So I did a search myself. I went to the matrix system. You can go to your local realtor tomorrow and say, I'm looking for a patio home in Lewiston. What's on the market? There's nothing on the market right now in the entire town of Lewiston. So there is a demand. There's nothing on the market. It's supply and demand. Right now we have no supply. We're proposing to bring a supply so people have an option, a different style of living. There are people that want to size down, and they don't want to move elsewhere. They want to stay in Lewiston.
Okay. Let's stop there. Did you have any questions for Mr. Rubino?
Well, I do have a couple. Say your plan, I don't understand your market study, it really entitled me to see anything, which is fine.
I could give you some.
Okay, I wouldn't mind seeing that, but say you want to put these $275,000 to $325,000 homes up and they don't sell, whatever, for whatever reason. What's to stop you from coming in and putting cheap housing up, just enough to get your money back and then get out of Dodge? It's just something I consider.
There's no guarantees in life. There's always risk.
Oh, no, the market can crash
There's always a
tomorrow.
risk when you're
Exactly.
a home builder or developer, but we wouldn't be risking a lot of money to get this project started again. This is a failed, the project stalled years ago to complete the whole project. We're proposing some new ideas based on the current market conditions right now. We know, we've spoken to people, there's people that live close by, they're in big houses, and they want something a little bit smaller. They don't want to cut the lawn anymore. They don't want to do the snow plowing, but they want to stay in Lewiston. Right now, there's no other option. They can move to another town, they can move out of state. And we do have a stake in this community, like some people say we don't. We have a stake. We love Lewiston. We live 29 miles that way. It's called the town of Amherst, Erie County. We're not out-of-towners, we're neighbors. And we want to be friends with everybody. And if someone's got a problem, if they need screening across a driveway or a street, of course we're going to help out with something. Absolutely.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
And I just have one comment to make. My wife Renee just said, maybe explain what a patio home very quickly is to people that don't know what a patio home is. A patio home is a detached house that has an association that takes care of the outside of the property. So like you're living in a house, but you have an association that takes care of the lawn maintenance, the snow plowing, that sort of thing. So that's really what the definition of a patio home is. No, and by the way, there is, as far as I know, there will not be any blasting that we know about. There was no blasting in Saddlewood. I don't understand why there would be any blasting in the new subdivision. So,
If there was, would you be willing to, I mean, how would you address the concern that Mr. Jacoby brought
yeah, if
up?
we had to blast for some reason in one spot, we would have to do a neighborhood survey. The blasting company would hire a surveyor to go in each and everybody's basement. And at that point in time, they would take notes if there's cracks in the foundation or not, and make notes of that.
Would they be reaching out to the Power Authority?
Whoever would be affected by this, absolutely. But we don't see blasting. I mean, everybody, the house is constructed at Saddlewood, at Bridle Path, they didn't blast.
Do they have, your designs, do they have basements?
Yes, yeah, they would be full basements,
Do you have a
unless
design?
unless someone didn't want a basement.
I was gonna ask if you had a design that didn't include a basement.
We don't, but if someone says, I don't want a basement,
Or
then,
you were building on bedrock is what I'm concerned.
if it was on bedrock, then we'd have to look at it. You know, because you don't have to blast, you could bust with a machine.
What about sewer
That's
lines?
cheaper.
I'm sorry, what about sewer lines to cut through the bedrock?
Again, we're not in the design stage right now. That's up to the engineers, our engineer, the town's engineer, at that point.
Councilman Gavin?
Two things. One, we are bound to follow the law. So if you have time, download the zoning law for the PUD and look it over and see if you have any further questions. Second, you probably have heard a couple of times, Al and Rob did this, or Steve and Al. We can't discuss the project, three people in the room.
That's right.
So we are sometimes getting things second hand from each other. Sometimes it's Al and I talking, sometimes it's Steve and I. The law says we cannot have three people unless it's a public meeting. Now, if you run into us at Casa Antigua, there's three of us having a drink. As long as we're not discussing the town business, we're within the bounds. And when it gets to the project, if this project moves forward, our engineer is bound to try to answer every one of these questions to make sure it's answered properly from an engineering viewpoint. So there's a lot more to this, and that's some of our limitations. We follow the law.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Rubino.
Okay, I just want to
Thank you.
extend one quick thing too, with the land that abuts the church property. I never knew that there was a playground park over there in that property, and I was told by the board members that that was a concern for safety. So there is an opportunity to make that situation a lot better and possibly have a nice park with a playground inside of it, maybe a walking trail through to Bridle Path. All that is just, it's all a win-win situation for families and the town and all the residents.
Thank
I
you.
just want to thank everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Rubino. Okay.
We need direction from our attorney as to what we have to do with the clock.
We need to call for a public hearing on the 13th.
Okay.
Make a motion for public hearing on the 13th of November
In
for,
regards,
It'll be for the,
for the new law,
for local
for
law,
local law with respect
to
to
the modification of the concept plan.
modification, isn't it modification of the current PUD?
Yes.
The modification of the new,
Yes.
of the PUD to include a new concept plan.
Correct.
Okay. Some, just for the public hearing.
second.
We have a
Because the rest
motion.
of it's already being built, so yes. it will be-
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Do we have any
One question,
questions?
yes. Do you need documentation from the builder that you have that extension?
No, it was on the record,
It's on the record?
yes. And Mr. Rubino did come up here and,
Right, okay.
no,
There's no concern.
no.
Okay, so we have a motion, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Donna, clerk's correspondence under new business.
What time?
Oh, 6 o'clock. November 13th at 6 p.m. No correspondence? We have a meeting request from the 4 fire companies that I have here. This is a letter that was sent. Everybody has a copy of it. The situation, and I believe, Brian, did you speak with Brian about this? Brian was our town attorney when this came up originally. It's in regards to the hazmat trucks.
I actually handled the turning it over to the county.
No. This was, originally they had money set aside to build a hazmat building for the town of Lewiston hazmat.
Oh, yes.
That no longer exists. So Brian, this is before you came on board and before Ryan came on board. And I spoke with Brian Seaman about it. His determination was, you just can't turn this money over to the fire departments. What they're requesting is 4 vehicles, 1 for each fire truck, to haul hazmat materials, but we no longer have a Lewiston hazmat. So it was Brian's understanding, and he was gonna make a resolution, we were gonna move this money right out of that fund, that they would not be eligible for those funds, and that money needs to go back to the general fund. Do you remember talking to him?
I do recall that. That is my understanding. It would be a prohibited gift to basically, because they're contracted with the town.
Right.
The town entity, a prohibited gift to just give them this equipment.
And this money did not come from the special tax, special district tax for fire departments. It came from the town's general fund.
That's my understanding.
And
They go back.
and that's where it needs to go back. So, okay, so as far as that, I would say that we're not interested in giving that money to the fire departments, that we want to move that as quickly as possible to the general fund, correct? Yeah, and not that we're not interested, we're not allowed to give it to the fire company.
Based on the recommendation of our attorney, we
Right.
are not permitted to
Correct.
transfer that money to the fire department.
And I did discuss this with the controller's office during a training session, and I was told that this was not an authorized use of those funds either.
Yeah, so,
It doesn't mean that the fire company can't come back and request something specific and we figure out how to fund it.
We're under
This money can't
contract.
be
we
used.
know, I mean, we provide them, we have a contract with the fire departments. You know, we give them a certain amount of monies every year, and they would fund it through that money or other resources that they have, so. But that's we don't have to make a motion or anything on that, it's just the correspondence that they gave us. So we addressed it last year, and it came back again. Legal, anything under legal?
I have nothing other than what we've already handled.
Nothing for me.
Okay. Engineering.
One minor
Go ahead, microphone.
Just one minor thing, if you may recall, a meeting or two ago, I discussed the fact that we were pursuing the installation of a new fire hydrant up at the New York Power Authority. We were gonna do the design, solicit bids, and then get approval from the Power Authority for full payment of that. Just as an FYI, we sent those out to bid, I think tomorrow, and hopefully we'll have something for consideration for the board on November 13th. Won't cost the town anything.
Can those be installed in the winter?
They can, yeah, they can. So that's just FYI, that's all there is to it.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. Finance.
Okay, I have several issues, all very minor stuff. I have 2 vouchers, and I did put it on the diocese for you guys, that we did not have them in time for the current abstract, but they are due prior to our next meeting, and we really need to get them paid. One is to the Niagara County Water District for $1,012.76, which is due tomorrow, and then the copier fax invoice is for $145.09 is due November 6th. We would appreciate your approval to pay these post-audit.
Make a motion to approve the payments to Niagara County Water District in the amount of $1,012.76. And copier fax, is that the name of the payee?
Yes.
In the amount of $145.09.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
The second one is, the board had discussed the meeting room and the cost that was over the $28,000 that we have grants for. And we had talked about moving those funds out of the contingency fund, but we never made a motion to move those from the contingency fund to the building contractual. So that dollar amount, it turned out to be, because there was some rotting wood and there was additional work that had to, I mean, you can't attach wood to rotted wood. So the amount that we need to fund through the contingency is $12,932. But there's also an additional invoice that we almost had a fire. We
Is
had
this for the air conditioning unit?
Yeah, we had an electric disconnect box, which was $675. So I want to move both of those for a total of $13,607 from the contingency fund into the building contractual fund, so that those invoices, as they come up, can be paid from that.
Move the sum of $13,607 from account A00199004000000 to account number A00162004000000 to pay the additional change order on the dais and the meeting room, together with the additional money for the emergency expense associated with the what is it called, this cutoff switch? Electric disconnect box for the town air conditioner on the roof.
We have a motion
A second.
and a second. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye. Just gonna be do it again.
Okay, ready for some more accounts? We have approved for the purchase of the cameras and iPads for the recording the meetings. However, we have never done a transfer in the budget. This transfer needs to increase the B0019970200, which is town equipment, and it increases the franchise tax revenue. That money is currently in deferred revenue. We need to move it, but because that expenditure is there, we need to increase both the revenue and the expense.
So where does the money come from?
It's actually going to come out of deferred revenue, but for budget purposes, for the expense of the budget, you increase the revenue and you increase the expense.
So the B1170 account is where the money's coming from?
Well, for the budget, for the budget, the town equipment, the 199700200 is coming out, is going to increase the town equipment, and it's going to increase the revenue. The revenue then will come from deferred revenue, will be moved over.
If you remember, that's the Time Warner advance that we
Yes,
received,
that's okay.
and it's been sitting in this account.
It's in
waiting to
deferred
put it.
revenue.
Yeah, I know.
It's.
What is the dollar amount? Is it-
$4,507.96 is what has been authorized to be spent at this point in time.
4,000?
$4,507, oh, no, I take that back. That's the double. It's $2,253.98.
Make a motion to approve the transfer defined in number 3 in the amount of $2,253.98.
Yes.
Is that right, Donna?
That's
You got
perfect.
that, okay.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It gets confusing, I know. I try to make it as easy as I can. In addition, there are 2 other budget revisions that need to be made. One is for the seniors. The equipment line needs to be increased by $307.32, and it's coming out of the seniors contractual, so it's just a reclassification. And then the other one is for the police, the union welfare benefits need to be increased by $20,000, and it's coming out of hospital and medical insurance for police. It's just a reclassification. We had somebody at the police department that, because they were in the town hall union, their benefits now are in a different place, and it's truly a mechanical thing. It's not-
Are we categorizing funds in
We're reclassing
the whole account, so we don't have an amount?
No, the seniors equipment is, it's.
307.
Yeah, it's, in number 4, you have the detail attached there. It's $307.32 for the seniors, and then $20,000 even for the reclassification for the police from union, or from medical insurance to union.
I'll do it in 2 motions. Move to
Yep.
reclassify $307.32 from the senior center contractual to, is that BBE?
To the seniors equipment,
Senior equipment.
yes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Aye. Make a second motion to reclassify $20,000 from medical, police medical, to union benefits.
Yes.
Second.
We have a motion and second, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
And then the last piece of business that we have is to approve the audited financial statements, or to accept them, so that we can get them online and get them out to the public.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And Don,
Okay.
you can do that tomorrow, probably?
Real quick, I see an application for appointment to the Ethics Committee that isn't on the agenda. I'd like to hold off, and I appreciate Mrs. Maggard you putting in for it. I just want to hold off because Mrs. Maggard is the head of our historic preservation. And I,
One job.
yeah, and I don't know, and I can look into it about putting her, because there's some boards that I know they don't want the same person on several boards. So I will look into it. We have your application, and we'll just take no action tonight.
Just for the record, I think you'd be good.
Yeah.
Oh, I know I would.
I just want to get cookies and stuff out of you for 2-3 days, so you can bribe me for the next cookies for the next meeting.
Very yum yum.
And then, well, that'll do it for me, Councilman Bax.
I have nothing further, thank you.
That's your thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, I do. Yeah, here it is. This is from Mr. Dashino. Make a motion to accept the following bids from Auctions International. Toro Hydro Walk Behind Mower, the highest bid was $52.50. John Deere Snow Blower, $57.50. Toro Proline Walk Behind Mower, $87.50. Kubota Mower, $260. 1995 Chevy GC2 Pickup, $270. Easy Go Golf Cart, $62.50. Robin Water Reel, $360. Dixie Chopper Zero Turn Mower, $1,325. John Deere Gator Utility Vehicle, $2,225. Jacobson Rel Motor, $175. And I'd also like to, in conjunction, reject the bid for the 2005 Jacobson Groom Master, which the high bid was only $310. And I'd like to accept in its place the bid enclosed from Royalton Heartland Central School for $750.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye. Now I have.
Yeah, Councilman Guyton.
Marty, the risk management report, do we have to take any action on that?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay. Our engineers, or our insurance company has looked over the town, and we have a few issues that need to be addressed for risk management. You're going to do the, who's highway? You're highway. You'll do the highway one?
Sure.
All right, who's recreation? That's
That's right.
Beth. May I do recreation, because Beth her term expires the end of December, and she it may not get resolved with that. And she is also a senior. May I do that with your permission?
Sure, yes. Do we don't need a motion
No,
to make it.
just want to make sure that it gets done, because we are in violation.
Okay. Good. That's it?
Actually, we're not in violation, we're just suggestions.
What's our suggestions?
Suggestion.
Hopefully by the next meeting, we will have our cameras in place. They have been delivered.
Councilman Morial.
Yes, the attorneys, am I recommending the approval of the rezone for NU tonight, since the public hearing?
That's not yet, no.
Not tonight? Okay, no, then I don't have nothing.
Okay. That's good. Okay, then we're on to resident statements. Nancy Correa.
I have a statement to read from someone who could not physically be here, but wants a voice heard. It's from Paulette Glasgow. The Lewiston Taxpayer Accountability and Action Alliance and I, Paulette Glasgow, personally wish to thank Karen Lyle and other members of the Alliance for taking on the task of voluntarily updating the town's 40-plus-year-old ethics policy. Spearheading this task, Karen Lyle devoted endless hours of research in drafting various proposals for consideration. Approximately 18 months ago, the Alliance started the process for updating the ethics policy. A year ago, a draft policy was presented to the board a year ago, which incorporated prevalent sections of the current policy. Most of the sections of the current policy were outdated and/or omitted current law and issues of importance. The draft lay dormant for many months without board discussion or feedback. Ongoing inquiries by the Alliance as to its status ensued. 8 months ago, during one of those inquiries, the supervisor responded with his displeasure with the draft. The Alliance asked the board to change rather than forego and ignore it. Mr. Bax and Moriel volunteered to meet with the Alliance to work on revising the draft. Mr. Bax presented 8 different copies of ethic policies by various government entities to study, discuss, and incorporate into our draft when appropriate. Most of those policies proved to be outdated and incomplete. Mr. Bax and Morial and the Alliance decided that only one presented viable information and referenced current state law. Those have been incorporated in our updated draft. Karen Lyle, from the onset, has continued to chair numerous meetings, diligently noting changes, revising copies, and leading discussions. Changes have been ongoing with precise attention to detail, wording, and their meaning. These were incorporated into the final draft, which has now been presented for your consideration. The majority of work has been done by Karen Lyle, who undertook and kept this effort ongoing from its inception. We want to recognize her efforts and thank her.
Okay, that'll do it.
Steve?
I got one more, but I thought someone else was talking.
Yeah, nobody had signed up, but,
I didn't say good.
yeah, go ahead, absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't see a sign.
At any rate, I'd like to go on record as being extremely opposed to out-of-town residents speaking during the resident portion of the meeting.
Yeah.
I just don't understand how that works. And this is to the Gazette and the Sentinel. I would hope that they report a groundswell of support for this project came from Akron and Williamsville and other outside communities. The only other thing I'd like to say is there's a persistent rumor about the entryway off of the access road, I guess you call it, that may require a variance. And I don't know, I'm asking you if you want to address it at some point. You don't have.
I'm not, Tim, do you know that to be true?
No. There's nothing there that requires no.
Yeah, from what I understand, there's no variances. That's what I understand.
Okay.
Okay? And
I think the issue was the width of the road.
It's a full 66-foot right away, there's no variance needed.
Okay.
There's two structures on each
Hold
side of that.
on. Well, you come up and speak. Hold on, let John finish.
I was really upset though about the out-of-town residents coming in and their applause. And it's like the Rubino brothers brought up a fan club, you know? And I'm not trashing the Rubino brothers, they look like great guys. And I'm not trashing patio homes. I think our residents are paying taxes year after year after year. They deserve the floor. Let them go talk in Williamsville.
Hold on one second.
Oh,
Go ahead.
Go ahead, I'm gonna speak after you.
I believe the issue is that the 30-year-old plans show a service road. Now, with regard to that, Mr. Broderick, I fully understand the necessity of access for emergency equipment. And you know what? I'm a firm believer that if you're gonna point out a problem, you better damn well have at least one solution to offer, maybe even two. I stood up at this microphone and I offered you three. If the access is necessary, how about a service type road that's gated? If that's not suitable, then how about a single lane, one-way directional road, which will cut the amount of traffic in half, okay? Cut it in half.
saying only ingoing?
You know what? It would depend on a possible,
Well, that would
genuine, real study.
No, but it would
okay?
certainly would.
I'm sorry, well, here, Mr. Bax, let me offer this to you. You know what? The access point on Upper Mountain, I'm just saying, why not make that entrance only, and then the one on Bronson, exit only? That would cut the amount of traffic in half. I've already, in 30 seconds, I've offered you two solutions to a problem, which just seem to go in and out of your ears. Now, with regard to the 30-foot setback, you guys are standing here and you're gonna force a developer to abide by a 30-foot setback on their proposed concept. And then, when it goes into place, what's gonna happen is it's not gonna be in effect on the existing buildings that are there. It's not the 66-foot right-of-way, it's the house on both sides that can't meet that 30-foot setback.
Hold on one second. The 30-foot setback's the front of the house, correct?
No.
Hold on. The 30-foot setback he's talking about, is at the front of the house?
I don't know what 30-foot setback he's talking
The
about.
30-foot setback is indicated on the concept drawing. It's not the back, it's not the front, because, do you have a copy? May I approach you to point it out?
Hold on. You haven't bitten me yet.
And I don't, what I intend to do is inform you, right here, this line indicates 30-foot setback.
Absolutely.
That's what it is, that's a 30-foot setback. That's a 30-foot setback. This house here is gonna face this way. So it's a 30-foot setback on the front and the side. It cannot be met with Granto's residents, and it cannot, if you follow this line this way, 30 feet from here back, both of these houses, it won't allow it. So you're gonna you're gonna offer a variance, to a developer and go against an existing taxpayer's residence. Two of them, in fact, which I believe is why this road was always intended to be service or emergency access only. The 30-year-old plans indicate that this was a stone base. I know we can't do that now because the codes have changed. But you know what? Whether it's a single lane or a service road, or if this is an entrance and this is an exit, or vice versa.
Okay.
Because you will settle the emergency issue.
This is what I'll offer you. Can you come in tomorrow? Because he doesn't know what you're talking about. Okay, and I want to make sure we clarify it. Okay? Could you come in tomorrow?
What time?
Like 1 o'clock?
Actually, before 12 would be a little bit better.
That's fine.
Okay?
Okay.
Are you starting to see where I'm coming from?
Well, I want him, he's the guy that has to understand it and explain, and go from there. So I want to make sure we're on the same page and we're correct.
From what I've read, the purpose of the setback is off the top, is a safety issue. In fact, from, where did I read it? I think it was online, and it pertains to Lewiston's laws and ordinances. And in areas of high traffic, a 35-foot setback is recommended
Okay.
for the safety of the residents and the buildings. So, yeah, it's like I'm beating myself in the head with a hammer here, because, you know, I'm pointing out these things, and it just seems to like be treated like so nonchalant.
I want, not
Mr.
nonchalant,
Broderick,
I want to
you
make sure it's
stood in
true.
Mr. Broderick, you
I mean-
stood in my yard, and Mr. Bax, you did too, and you saw how close my garage is and where that road's going. And the same thing is occurring on the other side in Mr. Granto's house, okay? And I mentioned it, I don't have children, small children, and I don't have grandchildren yet, but you know what? I don't want cars whizzing by my house like that close. Now, I understand that we have to allow development, but you know what? There are certainly times when discretion needs to be applied here, okay? If it's truly an emergency issue where equipment needs to be accessed, well, what about the, that gravel road that accesses Country Club Trail? Okay, and believe me, I'm not saying put in a gravel road. But you know what? The developer just wants to blow it wide open and put in a 2-lane with gutters on both sides, and you know what? That's gonna, you guys are wearing me down. And if that's what you're trying to do.
Go ahead, Bill.
The developer did not want to put that in there,
Put what?
that road. It's a more cost to him. What?
Go ahead.
Hold
Go
on.
ahead, Mr. Conrad.
It's the code that's
Bill,
forcing him.
use the mic, Bill.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
The fire code is forcing him to put that road in. And that's why, and there's requirements for those roads, you know, as far as width and access. And, you know, say one-way versus a two-way. If you have a one-way in, that means every car coming into the development comes in that way. So you really have the same amount of traffic, but it's all going one direction, and it would be the same thing.
No, go ahead.
You have 50, if you have 50 cars traveling into that development, you'd have 50 cars entering they'd be going one way, granted.
Okay.
But then they would have to go one way out there. So you still have 50 trips, whether there's 25 going in, 25 going out, or all 50 coming in.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to tell you is that a one-way road can be narrower. With regards to the fire safety issue, it only requires, hold on, and I went online and I researched this. It only requires a 22-foot wide road for one piece of fire equipment, unless it's required that you have to access it with a ladder truck, which would require 26 feet wide, but a ladder truck's not requested or necessary because none of those patio homes or whatever they plan on building there are gonna exceed 30 feet.
Right, there's
Okay.
a lot of things within the fire code, as far as like the requirements, and you may have seen a certain portion of it,
Mhm.
but there's a lot of things that are in there that depends on what, you know, how large a property that's servicing, how many units, things like that. So, there may be some other things in there, and I would think we should really talk to Pat Martin, the fire inspector.
Yeah, and like I said,
just
come
to
and
clarify.
talk to Tim tomorrow.
Do you have a card, Mr. Masters, so I can call you before I leave my home?
I'll get it for you then.
Okay, yeah, I mean,
You know what, it's a big issue for everybody in the neighborhood, but it's an even bigger issue for me. And for the love of me, I don't know why Mr. Grano hasn't showed up. It's not my place to, you know, offer an opinion why he hasn't been here. I know he's more pissed about it than I am, okay? But why he hasn't shown up, I don't know, okay? But I'm not trying to tell you that we shouldn't develop anything, okay? But you know what? It just seems to me like these developers come in here, and with regards to the other one, Riverwalk and the other one, the developers seem to ask Lewiston to jump, and then we say, well, how high? And some of us go, hey, how long would you like us to stay up in the air? It's not, you know what? We should be the ones making demands on them, okay? Not them making demands. We should be the ones saying, this is what we want, this is what we need, and this is what we'd like, okay? I imagine for a minute if developers competed if they were competing to develop here. Well, that's never gonna happen, not if we just keep handing away the store. It's such a, you know, it's.
It's disheartening.
Mr. Broderick, it's like I'm speaking, and sometimes you guys just don't seem to want to listen to what.
I think we're listening to every word you're saying. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to the meeting tomorrow, Mr. And if you'd like to come to my house so you can stand there and you can see where it is, I'm not opposed to that, okay? I mean, there's my garage, where your feet are is gonna be a road.
Thank you.
Well, about this dog shelter, I'm not against it because I always had a farm dog. The only thing is, I think it begins to be too big a project. Like, I mean, I think the alternative would have been like a ready-made shed, air condition it, and do whatever. Just like, almost like a stick house you're building, you know. And I was wondering if it could have been a BOCES project, you know. Now, maybe you've already bid it, so maybe you can't do that once you backtrack. Or maybe a work release project. And now, the only thing with work releases, they usually do one-day projects at a time. They help us out a lot up at the farm, at the Historical Society. So I kind of would think a little bit again, going back, maybe a pre-done shed or something like that. The other thing is, I think the residents have been pretty respectful here, you know, to each other and so on. There haven't been any booing or anything else. In fact, you know, there have been so many people here tonight and a few other meetings. I wish they came more often. In fact, this meeting was more interesting than my honeymoon. He's not here to defend himself.
Yeah, there you go.
I could have had that. You're holding on to that until somebody else comes again.
You sworn you're supposed
John, we can cope with it.
Would anybody else like to speak? Would you like to speak?
Yes, just
Nardine Brock, 470 Fletcher Road. I just would like to, probably not have to, but like to caution you on Mr. Rubino's comment that the real estate people say there are no patio homes in Lewiston. River Road is not going away. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want you all to understand, every one of you, no one is opposed to any kind of development back there. The magnitude of it and what it's going to cause, the problems it's going to cause there is beyond belief. So we're not saying not to develop it, but 130, 119, 100, whatever it is in the whole scheme of things, is just unbelievable. And patio-like homes are just another form of going down Ontario Avenue in Niagara Falls, where they're 10 feet apart, or they're North Avenue or Forest Avenue. That's all it is. It's a new wave name of changing city-like housing, and we live in the town of Lewiston. We don't live in the city of Niagara Falls. It's just too much. Houses like that exist in the neighborhood with lots, with the previous plan that was in place had bigger lots, and they're saying they're lessening the impact. They're not lessening the impact, they're making it denser, right in a small area, because everything has been deemed wetlands other than the small area that exists off of the Circle James in Bronson. It's just too much for that area.
It's something left wrong, okay? And I know, you sit over there and you roll your eyes and you make funny faces. Yeah, you do, Mr. Catalano. I see you all the time. And you're the one that keeps
what's your
saying,
point? What's your
keep
point?
saying that 1982 is approved. Let them build that. Let them build the 1982 plans. They're approved, right? Right? They can start building tomorrow, right?
They don't have a detailed plan, they have a concept plan. Two different things. Again,
The 1982 plan has been approved.
the concept plan has been approved.
Okay, so why do we need to go through all this with the 2017 plan? If the 1982 plans have been approved.
You pass it, we're stuck with it.
That's all. That's what we've been told. That's what we were told at the first meeting, the second meeting. People, this has been approved. They can start building tomorrow. That's what we were told. So, I mean, let them build that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Martha Hesley, Can you hear me?
Yes,
Martha
yes.
Hasley, and I live on Carriage Lane, 827 Carriage Lane. And I moved here about 6 years ago. I grew up on the other side of the reservation on a 100-acre farm. And then I went to college, and after that I lived for 45 years in Japan, which is one of the more very densely populated areas on earth. My little house had a street in front of it, on the side of it, and behind it. Right behind it, about 10 feet from my door. And so I know what it is to live in very thickly populated areas. So when I came back home to here, my brother showed me this area, and I was thrilled. It didn't take me much long at all to say, I'll take this place, because I walked into my house, and I looked through the windows toward the patio, and there was that beautiful scene of all the woods. I was thrilled, and I said, I'll take it. I didn't really deal with the money as much as I should have. But anyway, my thrill to be here has been to be visited by a tom turkey and his harem of about 12. And then another time, or other times, the deer have come past my garage and just stopped and looked in the window. And all the birds and the rabbits and even a coyote at a time, but the deer every once in a while, the turkeys very often. In the last year, they haven't appeared. None of them have. And so I am, in my house, I'm about 10 feet from the property line of where the Rubinos are going to live. Build. So to me, I'm right back to Japan almost. It's going to be real crowded with all those houses. So it's a great disappointment for me, having grown up on a great big farm over on Saunders Settlement Road. Then I love Japan tremendously, but it was such a nice refreshment to come here and say, oh, this place has space, it has quiet. It still is quiet, it's very nice. But to think of all those houses that are going to be behind my house, I'm real sad about that. I just wanted to express that. And another thing, I've read many times more recently that there's, all over the country, they build wildlife strips so that the wildlife can go from one woods to the next, and so that they're not totally wiped out. They have a place to move around. And I know here, Lockport Road all over, the wildlife does follow areas of forest. And the farm where I grew up on, I'm sure that's where they are. So why can't there also even be like a wildlife strip that's built between where I am, Carriage Lane, and that whole new housing area? They're going to leave, 10 feet is not a whole lot. So I just want you to know I'm very sad and disappointed. I know we'll have to deal with what comes, but maybe they could consider something like that. Something so that the wildlife can, I think it would be a great big selling point for the houses they are going to build to say it's still very natural. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, is there anybody else who would like to speak? Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Upcoming boards, commission meetings. There's a public hearing for the 2018 preliminary budget on October 30th at 6 p.m. Town offices are closed on Veterans Day, November 10th. Work session on November 13th at 6 p.m., which will also have a public hearing at 6 p.m. Then the Zoning Board of Appeals is November 9th at 7 p.m. Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, November 15th at 7 p.m. Planning Board, November 16th at 6:30 p.m. And the regular town board meeting on November 27th at 6 p.m. I hope everybody has a safe and happy Halloween, and everybody be careful, please. Thank you. Second, all in favor? Aye.